Wow, it's that sound. Where is it coming from, David? Wow.
I don't know.
He's back. I see the color of his eyes. He's wearing glasses. The muzzle is removed. The election's over. You know, Mark Carney won. That sucks for David. It sucks for Canada. But he fell short of securing an outright parliamentary majority. He's now facing a $2.1 trillion face down against the United States, which is a much bigger problem. Canada depends on the United States for 3/4 of all of its exports and nearly half of its imports. And if trade tensions don't cool down, Mark Carney's going to look like Justin Trudeau's older brother, and we're going to send some mud so he can do a blackface picture. Hey, everybody. My name's Stuart. That's David Solomon. This is an unfiltered podcast that's definitely unapologetic because we just are going to pick on Mark Carney a little bit. This podcast is a diverse range of topics with candid conversation, bold opinions, whether it breaks down the latest global terrorist who's now Prime Minister of Canada, or exploring culture and debating politics, delving into complexities of modern life. This platform offers a perspective from every seat. So grab a seat, settle in, and join us on this no limit, no hold barred conversation about, I don't know, Mark Carney, Canada.
So, ladies and gentlemen, somebody asked me the other day, David, haven't heard you say too much about Mark Carney and Canadian elections on the Rat Network in the last little while. And it was a personal choice that I took as I worked on a local campaign to try to keep a clean nose for my candidate. While she performed the best anyone has performed as a conservative candidate since 1988, she unfortunately fell short in this bizarre election. And so, as Stuart says, the muzzle's off, the handcuffs are off, everything is off, and now it's ready for me to express how I really feel over the last few months. If you're a Canadian, you're waking up this morning to a minority government. Yep, another minority government, which means Mark Carney did not, I repeat, did not get neither the votes, or I should say the seats, sitting this morning at 169. He needed 172 for a majority. So he's got a minority government. And like his predecessor, he did not get an overwhelming number of votes. He did beat the Conservatives by a whopping 500,000 votes, 8.6 to 8.1 million votes. That's it. If you look at the Canadian map today of where the seats are, again, it's almost divided east-west. And again, if you look this morning, the old song from The Who comes to mind. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Mark Carney and the Liberals are back with the same people. He'll announce his cabinet in a couple of weeks, he said, and in all likelihood, we'll see the same faces. The same people that sent Canada down the shithole for the last 9 years. Now, ladies and gentlemen, he's going to have to pass legislation and cater to socialists, the NDP, who only got 7 seats this time, who lost party status, whose leaders stepped down. This is a party filled with haters, Stuart. Crazy haters. Okay? Unbelievable amount of haters. And right now, this morning, there is this sickening ideology. And I'll tell you how much they were haters. Almost every NDP candidate boasted how well they feel about Israel on a website called votepalestine.ca, which called for the Canadian government to overwhelmingly declare a Palestinian state and reject Israel and basically smash Israel. Haters. People walked into Parliament wearing a keffiyeh, which you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to have any political symbols. But don't call it cultural. Don't this. They played games. That's the NDP. That's who the Liberals have been in bed with for the last 4 years. And that's who Mark Carney is going to cozy up to, because he doesn't need the separatist Bloc Québécois group at 22 votes, or 22 seats, I should say. So right now you're sitting here this morning wondering, so what's going to happen in Canada? Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. Canadians decided change meant changing the boss, changing Trudeau for Carney, one skinny runt for another skinny runt, one arrogant piece of shit for another arrogant piece of shit, one media darling for another media darling. Yes, the Conservatives made a very tactical error, and I'm not going to get into this today, by attacking Trudeau and not the Liberals. So the Canadians were convinced that change was sufficient at the top, not everything else. Now, when General Electric had their CEOs, Stuart, for so many decades, right? At the end of the day, the boss might have changed, but GE was still GE. You didn't change GE. Yes, they sold a few divisions, yeah, but the company was still GE. It still produced the same thing. It acted the same way. The culture hardly changed. Well, welcome to the Liberal Party of Canada. The new boss, going to keep the same old philosophy. Now, why did Mark Carney win, Stuart? Because Mark Carney was heralded as the guy who was going to beat Donald Trump. Beat Donald Trump. Those words, he said, someone's got to stand up to Donald Trump, and I'm the best one to do it. And convinced everybody that despite lying about his past, he's the best guy because he's an economist, right? Because he knows what to do. Stuart, he was Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. And as you said, what was the number you gave us the right now, the deficit, the debt in Canada? How many trillion? We can't hear you. You're on mute, my friend. We still can't hear you because you're on mute. Anyways, it's probably the way his wife likes it.
$2.1 trillion.
$2.1 trillion. So we're sitting on it. And what is Mark Carney going to do? To make it bigger. Mark Carney is going to go and negotiate from a position of strength against Donald Trump. Really?
Yeah. Hang on.
Really?
Stop you.
Really?
A globalist.
No.
You're going to send a globalist to go deal with Donald Trump. That's like sending Obama off to Israel.
The bottom line, my friend, is this. Canada said they want to change. And what they're going to get is a worse life. Right now, economically, we are so pathetic that we are the 51st state. We're worse than the 50th state in the union.
Yep, Louisiana.
We're worse on the global stage, on foreign affairs. We're an embarrassment. So what's the comment? Oh, Carney's going to make us better. Carney has never been a politician and has never negotiated. So suddenly he has all this, foreign affairs experience that he's going to know how to deal. Folks, what we're about to see is once again the further devolution of Canada. We're not going to see growth. We're not going to see improvement of life. What we're going to see is a continuation of the 9 years of Justin Trudeau, now being called the Mark Carney era. Now, as a minority government, if he goes to bed with the socialists, we got him for 4 years, just like Justin pulled off. And unlike the US, we don't have set election dates. But God help us, in about 18 to 24 months, we'll have to do this all over again. Because the life here cannot get better. Mark Carney has already expressed his position on certain things. And Canadians have chosen to ignore it and went to the ballot box and said, this kind of change is good enough. We don't need economic change. We don't need criminal law change. We don't need immigration change.
Healthcare.
The only thing we matter is we got to beat the orange man in the White House. And they think that Mark Carney's the guy to do it, Stuart.
Oh, boy.
So, ladies and gentlemen, my advice to you today, start preparing to leave Canada.
Yep. And you know what? I'm going to just tell you this. So Mark Carney, as far as qualifications, I just want to point this out. The only governance experience that Mark Carney has, he was a governor of Bank of Canada, 2008, 2013, probably one of the most pathetic governance in all of currency. And then he followed it up with 2013 and 2020 to being the governor of the Bank of England. Well, that was rather treacherous. And then he came back to be the stability chairperson of financial for the G20. Well, that went upside down. And now, before he just took this position, he was the UN Special Envoy for Climate Action. David, this is Mark Carney's resume.
Stuart, it's worse than that.
It could get worse than that, David.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What did the media do to Donald Trump when he refused to provide his tax returns? Do you remember that?
They called him a criminal.
Okay, so what do you think Canada did when the Canadian media did when Carney refused to provide his assets?
Oh, it's okay. He doesn't have to.
Right. Every other leader did. He didn't. So his company Brookfield, which ran out of Canada, by the way, set up shop in the US. That's okay. That was all right. Nobody's going to say boo.
Nope.
No one's going to say boo about the people that he screwed. No one's going to say boo about the fact that Liz Truss, who was not a well-loved prime minister, simply destroyed him as when he was the Bank of Canada, Bank of UK governor.
Yep.
It doesn't make a difference, Stuart. You see, the media did a wonderful job. I thought people were smarter than that. What I found out was that Canadians are a bunch of pansies. They're a bunch of wusses. They're a bunch of fucking babies who just sit there and watch and go, wah, 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 I can't vote conservative. Because comments like this came out, Stuart. Poilievre is too much like Trump. Don't know where that came from. Poilievre doesn't believe, who's, by the way, the head of the Conservative Party. Poilievre doesn't believe in abortion. He doesn't believe in a woman's right to choose. Where did you get that idea? Never said it in the election once. In fact, Poilievre actually came out with a statement that said for the last 20 years, the Conservative Party of Canada's position is not to change the current status, and has no interest in doing so. Well, he's anti-gay. Well, Pierre Poilievre's father came out as gay. Well, his adopted father came out as gay, and yet that's like and by the way, the deputy leader of the Conservative Party, Melissa Lantsman, is a lesbian. So, like, my question to everybody is, you come up with all these stories. Why not? I can't vote for because I think it's like the United States.
David, but I'm going to jump right on it. And so I'm going to just hone in to what the problem really is, not only in Canada, but in the United States. The media is controlled by a government that is not the government of the country and doesn't represent the people. You have CBC Canada, which is controlled by the CRTC, which clearly controls everything that's in the broadcast realm in Canada.
No. Sorry, I'm going to correct you on one thing. The CBC does not control everything in the realm. The CBC is the mouthpiece of the Liberal Party.
CRTC.
The CRTC is just like your FCC, okay? It's the same policy. It's the same kind of body. The CRTC does have to control in terms of going in and out of whatever. But the reality, Stuart, is you got Bell Media, which is a corporation. You got Rogers Media Corporation. We only have three real powerhouses here, and what they wanted is a liberal government. They didn't want it. Has nothing to do with the CRTC. It has to do with corporations who want to still have a liberal government. And the CBC was told by the Conservatives, "We're shutting you down in terms of the way you function." Stuart, imagine this corporation. Imagine, if you will, and you can't compare PBS to CBC. It's not reality. Okay, they function differently. But imagine the CBC getting all this funding from governments, doesn't make a dime. It loses money left, right, and center. The head of the corporation handed out ridiculous bonuses and salary pay raises to people for an organization that not only makes no money, it loses a shit ton of money. It comes out of the taxpayers' pocket. So the Conservatives said, "We're not funding you anymore. Go be self-funded." Mm-hmm. They went nuts. How dare you do that? And that's the socialist mindset that prevails in the CBC and did everything in its power to destroy the Conservative Party of Canada. It isn't hard to see it. When we had our debates, they simply asked him, they asked the head leader of the Conservatives, "Are you looking to shut down the CBC?" He says, "I'm not looking to shut it down. You have to just refinance yourself. Work like Bell and Rogers, like Paramount in the US, like any other corporation. You're not getting government money anymore. You're not."
Doesn't that sound no different than what happened here in the United States? And Trump actually shut down all these agencies.
Well,
and restructured them and consolidated them and cut billions and billions of dollars from taxpayers' expense. to come closer to a process of balancing the books by using trade deficits as leverage to renegotiate
I don't
fair
want to hear
trade
about
deals.
fucking tariffs. Your tariff fucking thing screwed my election, so fuck off with your tariffs.
Oh,
What you did, what you do, what no, Stuart,
Canadian
Stuart, Stuart,
blames
Stuart,
Canada?
Stuart,
Wow.
Stuart. I just
I'm going
shut
back
up
to South
because the
Park.
one thing that prevailed in this election, Stuart,
What
and
prevailed?
and I'll tell you something, and this is what really pissed me off is the
Mhm.
president of the United States damaged Canada on purpose, and he succeeded. That's what he wanted. He succeeded at damaging Canada by interfering by
Wow.
knowingly interfering in the Canadian election. He knowingly did it, and you know what, Stuart? And people are saying, "Oh, you guys." He knowingly played on Canadian voters' nerves. He did what he wanted, and he got what he wanted. And his art of the deal right now will emerge as a guy who knew how to play the right cards. Stuart, hey, if I'm in his position, I would do no differently.
Oh,
I
okay.
would want to stack the deck in my favor. He did it. And now Canada's going to pay the price because, like we've said in this podcast, when the United States sneezes, Canada gets a cold. Guess what? We've got fucking pneumonia right now. That's where we're at today.
David, you're making me laugh over some of this. Okay. All right. We've gone way over time today, guys, but I'm just going to leave you with this thought. President Trump did emasculate and did go after the Canadian electoral base by picking on the one nerves that Canadians seem to hold dearest, and that's their independence of the United States, which dates back to Upper and Lower Canada. I will tell you this: Canada is the only country, or Lower Canada is the only country or group to ever defeat the United States in any battle. And Canada teaches this in school when I was a child and David was a child, just like they taught Louis Riel. Currently, Mark Carney is the invertebrate at the room who doesn't have a majority, who is about to deal with someone who wrote the art of the deal. And Mark Carney, a loser in every single part of his career, now represents, which jokingly is no bigger than the 51st state of the United States and is the worst state if it was to be. But there's a lot of good people that live there, like David, like Tanya.
Well, let me put it this way. People,
there are a lot of very stupid people that live there who seem to think that they have the best healthcare in the world, they have the best economy in the world, and they have the best culture in the world. And you know what? I think what is going to happen is Canada is going to either have to emerge from the ashes a better place by maybe having a vote of non-confidence within the next 2 years and throw Mark Carney back to one of his other two passports, because a man owns 3 countries, with his balance sheet, which he never wanted to turn over to the Canadian people. So that being said, David, I'm going to wrap this up unless you want one last more, or did I cover the last little bit?
No, I think the last word I'm going to tell you is, you know how people screamed and cried about Trump and they said, oh, we got to leave the United States?
Yep. Are you leaving Canada? $5 million ticket.
There are probably 8.1 million Canadians today wondering the same thing. Should we leave
I have
Canada?
a silver ticket. You can buy a gold ticket just like this.
Anyway, Stuart, let's wrap it up.
All right, guys, let's bring this episode to an end. We truly appreciate you tuning in and joining us. Let's hope the Canadian government doesn't go after David Solomon for actually calling out the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. Your support and engagement means everything to us, and continue fostering an honest, thought-provoking conversation. Don't forget, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, noon Eastern, we're going to roast somebody because it's just so easy to do it. And you know what? I think Mark Carney is the new Donald Trump. Why do I say that? Because that guy is a walking orangutan, man. I got to tell you, Donald Trump is no longer the orangutan of the world. We got one